Jake Murphy pressed his face against the transport ship's window and stared at the massive space station floating in front of him. 3 huge metal rings connected by bridges and towers spun slowly around each other. Lights twinkled from thousands of windows. Ships moved in and out like busy bees around a hive. Zenith Academic Collective, he whispered to himself. I actually made it. The 22-year-old engineering student from Ohio had dreamed of this moment for 2 years. When Earth joined the Galactic Federation, they started an exchange program. Only 10 humans were picked from millions of applications. Jake still could not believe he was one of them. The transport ship docked with a soft bump. Jake grabbed his single backpack and followed the other passengers toward the exit. As he stepped into the station, his eyes grew wide. The ceiling stretched up so high he could barely see it. Aliens of every shape and size walked, floated, and slithered through the corridors. A tall, thin creature with purple skin and 4 arms approached him. She wore official robes and had kind yellow eyes. You must be Jake Murphy, she said through a small device that turned her words into English. I am Dean Velthara. Welcome to Zenith Academic Collective. Jake smiled and reached out his hand. Nice to meet you. Dean Velthara looked at his hand like it might bite her. She backed away slightly. Yes, well, we should get you to your room quickly. The other students are quite curious about you. As they walked through the station, Jake noticed something strange. Every alien they passed stopped and stared at him. Some whispered to each other. Others moved to the far side of the corridor as he went by. A few small bird-like creatures actually ran away when they saw him coming. Are they okay? Jake asked, pointing to a group of crystal-shaped beings who were huddled against a wall. They are fine, Dean Velthara said quickly. They are just not used to seeing a human. Your species is quite rare in this part of the galaxy. Jake nodded, but he felt confused. He thought he looked pretty normal. Sure, he was 6 feet tall and had broad shoulders from working construction during summers. But he was not scary or anything. He was just a regular guy who liked to fix things and play. Video games. They reached the student housing area. Dean Velthara led him to a door marked Room 4B7739. She handed him a key card and stepped back quickly. Your roommate is Pipter of the Kelvani. He is very quiet and peaceful. Please try to be gentle with him. She paused. And please try to walk softly. The floors are not built for Earth normal gravity. Jake looked down at his feet. I don't understand. I'm just walking normally. Yes, that is the problem, Dean Velthara said under her breath. Your room has been specially reinforced, and there is a medical team on standby if needed. Classes start tomorrow at 0800 station time. Please review the safety guidelines in your welcome packet. She hurried away before Jake could ask any more questions. He swiped his key card and entered his room. It was bigger than he expected, with 2 beds, 2 desks, and a small kitchen area. One side was clearly already occupied by someone very small. Hello? Jake called out. Pipter, are you here? A tiny voice squeaked from behind one of the beds. Please do not hurt me. Jake walked around the bed and saw a creature about the size of a house cat. It had soft gray fur, big round eyes, and was shaking like a leaf. It looked like a cross between a rabbit and a mouse. I'm not going to hurt you, Jake said, kneeling down to seem less tall. I'm Jake. I'm your new roommate. Pipter's eyes grew even bigger. You are the human, the Deathworlder. Deathworlder? Jake asked. What does that mean? You come from a Class 12 Deathworld, the most dangerous type of planet in the galaxy. Most beings would die just from landing on your world. Jake sat down on the floor, trying to look as non-threatening as possible. Earth isn't that dangerous. We have grass and trees and lakes. Kids play outside all the time. Pipter made a small, whimpering sound. Your world has gravity that would crush most species, weather that destroys entire cities, creatures that hunt other creatures for food. And you live there like it is normal. Well, yeah, Jake said. I mean, we have storms and stuff, but we just build stronger houses. And most animals are pretty harmless if you leave them alone. Harmless? Pipter squeaked. I saw the videos in orientation. Your world has predators larger than shuttlecraft. Insects that inject deadly poison. Plants that can kill you just by touching them. Jake thought about his backyard in Ohio. Oh, you mean like poison ivy and wasps and stuff? Yeah, you just have to be careful around them. No big deal. Pipter fainted. Jake gently picked up his tiny roommate and placed him on his bed. He noticed that Pipter weighed almost nothing. Jake had lifted heavier books. He got a small cup of water from the kitchen and waited for Pipter to wake up. When the small alien opened his eyes, Jake was sitting across the room to give him space. Are you okay? Do you need a doctor? You picked me up, Pipter whispered. You could have crushed me without even trying. I was very careful, Jake said. I know you're small and delicate. Delicate? Pipter laughed, but it sounded nervous. My species is considered quite sturdy by galactic standards. We can survive in low gravity and thin atmosphere. We can go without food for several days. We are explorers and scientists. Jake looked at the tiny creature. You're explorers? But you're so small. Most species are our size or smaller, Pipter explained. You are the unusual one. Humans are giants by galactic standards. Giants from a world so harsh that it builds monsters. I'm not a monster, Jake said quietly. I'm just a regular person. I like fixing machines and watching movies and eating. Pizza. What is pizza? Pipter asked. Jake smiled. It's bread with cheese and sauce and meat on top. It's really good. Pipter turned green. You eat flesh? You are a predator. Well, not really. I mean, I buy it from stores. I don't hunt animals or anything. Most humans don't. But you could, Pipter said, if you wanted to. You have the teeth and the muscles and the hunting instincts. Jake looked in the small mirror. On his desk, he tried to see himself the way Pipter did. His canine teeth did look pretty sharp compared to Pipter's small flat teeth. His jaw muscles were probably bigger than Pipter's entire head. I guess I never thought about it that way, Jake said. But I promise I won't hurt you. I don't want to hurt anyone. Pipter nodded slowly. I believe you. But your professor tomorrow is Dr. Keftal. He teaches peaceful conflict resolution. He has been very nervous about having a human in his class. Why? Because humans are known for solving conflicts with violence. It is in all the galactic databases. Your species fights wars and has competitions where you hurt each other for fun. Jake rubbed his forehead. Sports aren't really about hurting people, and wars are serious things. We don't fight for fun. But you could fight if you had to, Pipter said. That is what scares everyone. You are built for conflict in a galaxy that has been peaceful for centuries. Jake unpacked his few belongings while thinking about what Pipter had said. He had never considered himself violent or scary. He had been in exactly one fight in his whole life, in 8th grade, and he had lost. He preferred to solve problems by talking or by building something to fix them. But looking around this room, he started to notice things. The bed groaned when he sat on it. His footsteps made the floor vibrate slightly. When he turned the water faucet, he had to be careful not to twist it too hard, or it might break. Everything here was built for smaller, weaker beings. And to them, he must seem like a walking disaster waiting to happen. That night, Jake lay in his reinforced bed and listened to Pipter's quiet breathing. Tomorrow he would start classes at the most prestigious university in the galaxy. He had dreamed of learning about alien technology and making friends with beings from other worlds. He had never imagined that his biggest challenge would be convincing everyone that he was not a monster. Jake woke up early on his first day of classes. He tried to move quietly so he would not wake up Pipter, but even his careful movements made the bed creak and the floor vibrate. His tiny roommate's eyes snapped open immediately. "Sorry, Jake," whispered. "I was trying to be quiet." Pipter sat up in his small bed. "That was you being quiet?" It sounded like construction equipment. Jake winced. "I'll try to be more careful." He went to the bathroom and got ready for the day. When he came out, Pipter was staring at him with wide eyes. "What?" Jake asked. "You are so big," Pipter said. "I forgot overnight. You take up half the room just by standing there." Jake looked around the room. It did seem smaller with him in it. "Should I duck down or something?" "No, just be yourself. But maybe walk behind me to class. Other students might panic if they see you first." They left the room together. Jake tried to walk as softly as possible, but his footsteps still echoed in the corridor. Other students pressed against the walls as they passed. Some ducked into side passages. A few made worried chirping sounds. "Is it always going to be like this?" Jake asked. "Maybe they will get used to you," Pipter said, but he did not sound sure. Jake's first class was Peaceful Conflict Resolution in Multi-Species Environments. The classroom was a large circular room with seats arranged in rising tiers. Jake looked for a place to sit, but all the seats were too small for him. Professor Keftal entered the room. He was an elderly creature with gray skin and long tentacles instead of arms. His eyes were kind but nervous. "Welcome, students. Today we begin our study of peaceful solutions to disagreements." He spotted Jake standing at the back of the room. "Ah, Mr. Murphy, we have prepared a special seat for you." He gestured to a chair that looked like it was made from ship's hull metal. Jake sat down carefully. The chair held his weight, but it made alarming creaking sounds. Several students in nearby seats quietly moved to the other side of the room. "Now," Professor Keftal said, "who can give me an example of how their species typically resolves minor disputes?" A blue-skinned student raised her hand. "My people sing harmony together until we reach agreement." "Excellent," the professor said. "What about you, Mr. Murphy? How do humans handle disagreements?" Jake thought about it. "Well, it depends. Sometimes we talk it out. Sometimes we agree to disagree. And sometimes we just fight it out, and then go get a beer afterward." The classroom fell silent. Professor Keftal's tentacles stopped moving completely. "You fight?" asked a small crystalline student. "You mean actual physical violence?" "Yeah, sometimes," Jake said. "Like if two guys have a problem and talking doesn't work, they might throw some punches and settle it that way. Then usually they're friends again." Several students made distressed sounds. The crystalline student's body began to glow red, which Pipter had told him meant fear. "But surely these fights are ritualized?" Professor Keftal asked hopefully. "With safety measures." "And rules?" "Not really," Jake said. "I mean, there are some rules, like no hitting someone when they're down, and no weapons. But mostly you just punch each other until someone gives up or gets knocked out." A bird-like student near the front fainted and fell out of her seat. 2. Other students rushed to help her while giving Jake scared looks. "And after this violence, you remain friends?" Professor Keftal asked. "Sure," Jake said. "My buddy Rick and I got into a fight sophomore year because he said my girlfriend was ugly. We beat the crap out of each other, and then we went to get pizza. We're still friends." The professor's tentacles were shaking now. "Class dismissed," he said quickly. "Please read chapters 1 through 5 for next time." Students rushed out of the room like they were escaping a fire. Jake sat confused in his metal chair. "Did I say something wrong?" he asked Pipter. "You described humans casually inflicting serious bodily harm on each other for minor social disputes," Pipter said. "To most species, that level of violence would be fatal." Jake thought about this as they walked to his next class. He had never considered that what humans thought of as a normal fight might be deadly to other species. Rick had given him a black eye and a split lip, but those healed in a few days. Maybe aliens could not heal from injuries like that. His next class was in the gymnasium for physical wellness and recreation. Jake was excited about this one. He had been working out since high school and missed his normal exercise routine. The gym was huge, with equipment Jake did not recognize. About 30 students were already there, going through what looked like gentle stretching exercises. The instructor was a large reptilian creature named Vexcall. "Welcome, students," Vexcall said. "Today we will practice high-intensity cardiovascular training. Please begin with warm-up exercises." Jake watched the other students. They were doing movements that looked like slow-motion yoga. Their breathing was heavy, and several were already sweating. "Is this the warm-up?" Jake asked. "Yes," Vexcall said. "Very demanding, but good for building strength. Please join us." Jake shrugged and started doing jumping jacks. The sound of his feet hitting the ground echoed through the gym like gunshots. Cracks appeared in the floor where he landed. The other students stopped exercising and stared at him. Jake realized he should probably do something more in line with what everyone else was doing. He dropped down and started doing push-dash-ups. The reinforced floor creaked under his weight. Jake knocked out 50 push-ups in about a minute, then stood up and brushed off his hands. "Good warm-up," he said. "What's next?" Every student in the gym was staring at him with their mouths open. Vexcall's eyes were wide with shock. "That was your warm-up?" Vexcall asked. "Yeah, just getting loose," Jake said. "I usually do about 20 minutes of cardio after this." "20 minutes?" A small green student squeaked. "But you just performed more physical exertion than most species can do in a full day." Jake looked around the gym. "Where's the running track?" Vexcall pointed to a circular path around the edge of the gym. "That is for advanced students only. The gravity simulation makes it very challenging." Jake jogged over to the track. There was a sign that said, "Caution, high gravity training 0.8 standard G." Jake laughed. That was lighter than Earth normal. He started running at his usual pace. To him, it felt like jogging on the moon. But to everyone watching, it looked like he was moving at superhuman speed. His footsteps cracked the track surface with each stride. After about 10 minutes, Jake heard sirens. He slowed down and saw medical teams rushing into the gym. Several students had collapsed just from watching him run. Others were being treated for shock. "Mr. Murphy," Vexcall called out, "please stop immediately." Jake stopped running and walked back to the group. "Did I do something wrong?" "You just ran at speeds that would be fatal to most species," Vexcall said. "And you were barely breathing hard." Jake checked his pulse. "Yeah, this is pretty light exercise for me. On Earth, I usually run 5 miles every morning." 5 miles? Vexcall stared at him. "Without stopping?" "Sure. Sometimes more if I'm training for a race." An alien that looked like a walking plant started making whimpering sounds. "He's a pursuit predator," it said. "He can chase prey until it dies from exhaustion." "I don't chase prey," Jake said. "I just like to stay in shape." But looking around the gym, he saw fear in every alien face. They were not seeing a college student who liked to exercise. They were seeing a creature that could run them down and catch them no matter how far they ran. The medical teams were still treating students who had fainted. Jake realized his normal workout routine was being interpreted as a demonstration of hunting abilities. "Maybe I should skip the rest of class," he said quietly. "Yes," Maxcall said. "That might be best." Jake left the gym feeling confused and sad. He had just wanted to exercise and maybe make some friends. Instead, he had terrified everyone and sent several students to the hospital. That afternoon, he had a physics class. Jake hoped this would go better since it was just sitting and learning, not physical activity. The professor, Dr. Nixara, was a tall insect-like creature with multiple eyes. She was teaching about structural engineering in different gravity environments. "Can anyone tell me what materials would be needed to build a structure that could survive on a high-gravity world?" she asked. Jake raised his hand. "I know this one. On Earth, we use steel and concrete for most buildings. For really tall buildings, we use reinforced steel beams and deep foundations." Dr. Nixara's eyes widened. "You build structures in gravity that strong? What about natural disasters?" "Oh, we design for those too," Jake said. "Earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes. We just build stronger and use flexible materials that can bend without breaking." "Hurricanes?" Dr. Nixara asked. "You mean atmospheric? Disturbances with wind speeds over 200 kilometers per hour?" "Yeah, sometimes faster," Jake said. Hurricane Andrew hit Florida at like 270 kilometers per hour. Destroyed a lot of stuff, but people rebuilt. The class was silent. Dr. Nixara's multiple eyes were all focused on Jake. "Your species builds permanent settlements in areas regularly hit by disasters that would destroy most galactic civilizations?" she asked. "Sure," Jake said. "I mean, we try to build them better each time. And we have early warning systems and stuff." "Early warning systems for planet-killing storms?" "Well, they're not planet-killing," Jake said. "They're just really bad. Weather. People usually evacuate if it's too dangerous." Dr. Nixara sat down. Jake woke up on his third week at the university to find a crowd of students gathered outside his room. They were not there to welcome him. They were there to watch him through the window like he was some kind of dangerous animal in a zoo. "This is getting ridiculous," he said to Pipter, who was hiding under his bed. "They're just curious," Pipter said. "The videos of you in the gym have been shared across the entire galactic network. You're famous." Jake looked out the window. More students were gathering. Some had cameras. Others had what looked like scientific equipment. "I don't want to be famous for scaring people," Jake said. He got dressed and prepared to leave for class. When he opened the door, the crowd immediately backed away, creating a wide circle around him. Some students ran. Others just stared. Jake walked to his morning class, followed by a parade of curious and frightened aliens. He felt like a monster in a horror movie. His biology class was taught by Dr. Zilquan, a tall gray being with large black eyes. Today's topic was survival adaptations in hostile environments. Today we will discuss how species adapt to survive in dangerous conditions, Dr. Zilquan said. "Mr. Murphy, perhaps you could tell us about human adaptations?" Jake shifted uncomfortably in his reinforced chair. "I guess we're pretty adaptable. We can live in lots of different places. Can you? Give us specifics?" Dr. Zilquan asked. "For example, what is the temperature range humans can survive in?" Jake thought about it. "Well, people live in places like Alaska, where it gets down to like minus 40 degrees. And people live in deserts, where it gets up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The class gasped. A student that looked like a walking flower wilted slightly. "Those temperatures would kill most species within minutes," Dr. Zilquan said. "What about food? How long can humans survive without eating?" "Maybe a month or two if you have water," Jake said. Some people have gone longer. And without water? About a week, I think. Maybe less in hot weather. Dr. Zilquan's eyes grew wider. Most species would die within 2 days without water. What about injuries? How much damage can a human survive? Jake remembered his construction job last summer. Well, I fell off a roof once and broke my arm. I walked to the hospital, and they fixed it with a cast. It was fine in a few weeks. You walked with a broken bone? Dr. Zilquan asked. Yeah, it hurt, but it wasn't that bad. I've had worse. What could be worse than a broken bone? A small blue student asked. Jake thought about his high school football days. I got a concussion once. That was pretty bad. And I tore my knee up. Pretty good. Had to have surgery. Surgery? Dr. Zilquan was taking notes frantically. Your species can survive having its body cut open. Sure, doctors do it all the time. Heart surgery, brain surgery, all kinds of stuff. Modern medicine is pretty amazing. The class was silent, except for the sound of Dr. Zilquan's writing. Finally, he looked up. Mr. Murphy, what you're describing sounds like your species has redundant organ systems and accelerated healing abilities. Are you sure you're not exaggerating? I don't think so, Jake said. I mean, people die from injuries, but we're pretty tough. My dad had a heart attack, and they gave him a new heart from someone else. He's fine now. A crystalline student in the front row started glowing red again. They can transplant organs? They can survive with parts from other humans? Yeah, hearts, kidneys, livers, all kinds of stuff. Sometimes people donate organs while they're still alive. Dr. Zilquan dropped his writing instrument. Your species voluntarily undergoes major surgery to give organs to strangers? Sometimes, Jake said. My mom gave one of her kidneys to her sister. She said it was no big deal. The class erupted in shocked chatter. Dr. Zilquan held up a hand for silence. Class dismissed, he said. I need to contact the Galactic Medical Council immediately. After class, Jake walked to the botanical gardens, hoping to find a quiet place to think. The gardens were beautiful, with plants from hundreds of different worlds. But even here, he could not find peace. Students followed him at a distance. Whispering and pointing as he walked down a path, Jake noticed that a small tree had fallen across the walkway. It was blocking the path that several small students were trying to use. They were too weak to move it themselves. Without thinking, Jake walked over and picked up the tree. It was heavier than he expected, maybe 800 pounds, but he managed to lift it and move it to the side of the path. There you go, he said to the small students. Path's clear now. The students stared at him in terror and fled. Jake realized what he had done. He had just casually lifted something that probably weighed more than 10 of those students combined. Security cameras had recorded everything. Within an hour, the video was spreading across the galactic network. The caption read, Human demonstrates casual superhuman strength. Jake went back to his room and found Pipter watching the news on his tablet. You're on every news channel in the galaxy, Pipter said. They're calling you the strongest being ever recorded at the university. I was just trying to help, Jake said. I know, Pipter said. But you have to understand how this looks to everyone else. You just lifted a tree like it was a pencil. That evening, Jake was called to Dean Velthara office. When he arrived, he found not just the dean, but several other university officials, security guards, and what looked like military personnel from different species. Mr. Murphy, Dean Velthara said, please sit down. The chair they had provided looked like it was made from spaceship armor. Jake sat down carefully, and it still creaked under his weight. We need to discuss your impact on the university, Dean Velthara said. In 3 weeks, you have caused 17 medical emergencies. structural damage to 4 buildings, and widespread panic among the student body. "I didn't mean to," Jake said. "I was just trying to go to class and learn." "We know," said a military officer with scales and multiple arms. "That's what makes this so concerning. You're not trying to intimidate anyone. This is just your normal behavior." "We've been studying the videos of your activities," said another official. "You're casual. Demonstration of physical capabilities has forced us to revise our understanding of what's possible for organic life forms." Dean Velthara pulled up a holographic display. "Your walking pace forces other students to run to keep up. Your normal speaking voice registers as aggressive shouting to species with sensitive hearing. Your handshake could break bones." "I can." "Be more careful," Jake said. "You don't understand," the scaled officer said. "We've analyzed your movements frame by frame. You're already being incredibly careful. If you moved at full speed or used full strength, you could accidentally kill someone." Jake felt sick. "I would never hurt anyone." "We know," Dean Velthara said. "But the fact remains that you are a Class 12 Deathworlder in an environment designed for much more fragile species. Your very existence here challenges our understanding of biology." She showed him another display. "Your planet Earth has been reclassified as a Class 13 Deathworld. It's the most hostile environment ever discovered that still supports complex life." "But it's not that bad," Jake said. "People live normal lives there. Normal for humans." The scaled officer said, "Your species has evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most galactic species instantly. You're essentially biological weapons that learn to be civilized." "I'm not a weapon," Jake said quietly. "No, Dean," Velthara said more gently. "You're a young person trying to get an education. But you're also proof that there are forms of life in the universe far more dangerous than we ever imagined." The meeting continued for 2 hours. They showed Jake medical reports from students who had been traumatized just by watching him. They showed him structural analyses of the damage his footsteps had caused. They showed him psychological profiles of species who now considered all humans to be monsters. "What do you want me to do?" Jake asked finally. "For now, continue your studies," Dean Velthara said. "But we're implementing new protocols. You'll have a security escort to prevent panic. Your classes will be recorded so students can attend remotely if they're too afraid to be in the same room. And we're bringing in specialists to study you." "Study me?" "To understand Deathworld evolution," the scaled officer explained. "Your species represents a new type of life form. We need to understand how you work and how to safely integrate with you." Jake left the meeting feeling more isolated than ever. He was not just a student anymore. He was a scientific curiosity, a walking disaster, a monster that everyone feared. When he got back to his room, he found Pipter waiting with a group of other students. But these students were not running away. They were standing together, looking, determined. "We want to help," said a tall, insect-like student. "My name is Clixara. I'm a xenobiology major." "Help with what?" Jake asked. "Proving that you're not a monster," Clixara said. "Some of us have been watching you. You're careful around smaller students. You hold doors open. You try to be quiet in the hallways. You're not dangerous. You're just different." A small floating creature bobbed in the air. "I'm Zeppelin. I study comparative psychology. I think the problem isn't that you're scary. The problem is that everyone else is scared of things they don't understand. But I am dangerous," Jake said. "I could hurt someone without meaning to. So could anyone," Pipter said. "I could accidentally cut someone with my claws. Clixara could poison someone with her venom." Jake sat in his room, staring at his tablet screen. The galactic news was full of stories about him. Deathworlder terrorizes university. Monster from Earth threatens galactic peace. Should humans be banned from civilized space? He turned off the tablet and looked at Pipter, who was curled up in his small bed. Maybe I should just go home, Jake said. This isn't working. Pipter opened his big eyes. You can't give up now. Some of us are starting to understand you. Some isn't enough, Jake said. Look at this. He gestured to the window, where a crowd of students was gathered outside, watching his room. They think I'm some kind of monster. They're afraid because they don't understand, Pipter said. But fear can change to curiosity, and curiosity can change to friendship. There was a knock at the door. Jake opened it to find Dean Velthara standing there with Dr. Nix Ara, the physics professor. Mr. Murphy, Dean Velthara said. May we come in? We need to talk. Jake stepped aside to let them enter. Both aliens looked nervous, but determined. We've been reviewing the situation, Dr. Nix Ara said. The panic is spreading beyond the university. 3 different species have filed formal complaints with the Galactic Federation about your presence here. I figured, Jake said. I'll pack my things and go home. No, Dean Velthara said firmly. That would be the worst possible outcome. If you leave now, it will confirm everyone's fears that humans are too dangerous to interact with. But I am dangerous, Jake said. You've seen the reports. I could hurt someone without even trying. Dr. Nixara pulled out a small device and showed Jake a holographic image. This is a Kelvani child, she said. The image showed a creature even smaller than Pipter, with delicate wings and translucent skin. Beautiful, Jake said. This child could accidentally kill a Cylani adult just by bumping into them, Dr. Nixara continued. The Kelvani are 5 times stronger than the Cylani, but they coexist peacefully because they understand each other's limitations. Jake looked at the image. I don't understand. Every species in the galaxy has different capabilities, Dean Velthara explained. We've built our civilization around managing these differences, but no one has ever encountered a species as physically powerful as humans. So what do you want me to do? Jake asked. Help us understand you, Dr. Nixara said. Really understand. You, not just your physical abilities, but your psychology, your motivations, your limitations. I don't have limitations, Jake said. That's the problem. Everyone has limitations, Pipter said from his bed. What scares you, Jake? Jake thought about it. I guess I'm scared of hurting people. I'm scared of being alone. I'm scared of failing at things I care about. See? Pipter said. You're not invincible. You're just different. Dr. Nixara activated a recording device. Would you be willing to participate in a comprehensive study? We want to understand human psychology, not just human biology. Jake nodded slowly. If it will help. Over the next few days, Jake underwent the most thorough examination of his life. Dr. Zilquan studied his physical responses to stress, pain, and fatigue. Dr. Nixara tested his problem-solving abilities and reaction times. Other specialists analyzed his social behaviors and emotional responses. The results were fascinating and terrifying in equal measure. Your pain tolerance is extraordinary, Dr. Zilquan reported to a gathering of university officials. What humans consider minor discomfort would incapacitate most species. He showed them video of Jake undergoing various tests. When we applied pressure equivalent to breaking a Solani's bones, he rated it as slightly uncomfortable. When we increased the pressure to levels that would kill most species, he described it as annoying, but more interesting, Dr. Zilquan continued, is his emotional response to causing pain in others. When we told him that his grip strength test had damaged the equipment, his stress levels spiked higher than during any physical test. Dr. Nixara presented her findings next. Human problem-solving abilities are remarkable. They don't just find solutions. They find solutions that work in hostile environments. Mr. Murphy's engineering projects all include redundant safety systems and assume that something will go wrong. This is because humans evolved in an environment where failure meant death, she explained. They're not just physically tough, they're psychologically prepared for disaster. But the most important discovery came from Dr. Keftal, the conflict resolution professor. Humans have an unusual psychological trait, he reported. They form emotional bonds with almost everything around them. Mr. Murphy has developed protective feelings towards students who are afraid of him. He's more concerned about their well-being than his own. This pack-bonding behavior is extraordinary, Dr. Keftal continued. Humans will risk their lives to protect beings they've just met. They can form friendships with anything, even inanimate objects. Jake watched these presentations from his chair, feeling like a specimen in a laboratory. But he also felt hopeful. For the first time, people were trying to understand him instead of just fear him. What does this mean for the university? Dean Velthara asked. It means we need to change how we think about Mr. Murphy, Dr. Keftal said. He's not a predator looking for prey. He's a protector looking for someone to protect. But he's still dangerous, pointed out the scaled military officer. Yes, Dr. Keftal agreed. But he's dangerous to threats, not to friends. His protective instincts are stronger than his aggressive ones. They decided to test this theory. Dr. Nixara arranged for Jake to work with a group of students on an engineering project. The project was to design a safety system for a research station on a hostile world. Jake was excited to finally do something useful. He worked with Klexara, Zephlin, and several other students who had volunteered to work with him. At first, they were nervous, but as they worked together, they began to relax. Your ideas are really good, Klexara said as they reviewed Jake's designs. You think of dangers we would never consider. Like what? Jake asked. Equipment failure. During emergencies, Zephlin said. Most species assume technology will work when needed. You design backup systems for your backup systems. That's just common sense, Jake said. Things break at the worst possible times. Not to us, Klexara said. Most species live in stable environments where catastrophic failure is rare. You plan for disasters we can't even imagine. As they worked, other students began to gather around their group. At first, they stayed far away, but gradually they moved closer. Jake's gentle explanations and careful movements were helping them overcome their fear. See how he holds the stylus? Zephlin whispered to a nervous crystalline student. He's being so careful not to break it. His control is incredible. And watch how he moves around us, Klexara added. He's always aware of where we are, making sure he doesn't accidentally bump into anyone. Word spread about the project. Students began to visit not just to see the terrifying human, but to learn from his unique perspective on problem solving. You really think about worst-case scenarios, said a plant-like student named Grovan. Your safety protocols are amazing. They're overkill for most situations, Jake said, but better safe than sorry. That's the difference, Grovan said. Most species optimize for normal conditions. Humans optimize for survival. The project was a success. Jake's team designed a research station that could survive disasters that would destroy conventional facilities. But more importantly, Jake had proven that he could work safely with other species. Dr. Keftal presented the results to the university administration. Mr. Murphy's interactions with the project team show remarkable restraint and empathy. He's not struggling to control violent impulses. He's naturally protective and careful. But what about his physical capabilities? Ask the military officer. They're tools, Dr. Keftal said. Like any tool, they can be used for construction or destruction. Mr. Murphy chooses construction. Dean Velthara made a decision. We're going to continue the program, but we're also going to expand it. We need to prepare the galaxy for contact with more humans. Are you sure that's wise? Asked the military officer. No, Dean Velthara admitted. But running away from the unknown never leads to understanding. And understanding is the only way to move forward. That night, Jake sat in his room with Pipter and his new friends from the project team. For the first time since arriving at the university, he felt like he belonged. You know what I realized today? Jake said. I'm not the monster in this story. Fear is the monster. And the only way to fight fear is with patience and understanding. And friendship, Pipter added. Don't forget friendship. Jake smiled. Yeah, friendship too. Outside their window, a few students were still watching, but they didn't look scared anymore. They looked curious. And curiosity, Jake had learned, was the first step toward understanding. The galaxy was slowly learning that monsters and heroes were often the same thing, viewed from different perspectives. And Jake Murphy, the engineering student from Ohio, was teaching them that the scariest beings in the universe could also be the most gentle. He still had a long way to go, but for the first time, Jake believed that his dream of friendship between species might actually be possible. It would just take time, patience, and a willingness to see past the surface to the person underneath. The real test would come when more humans arrived. But for now, Jake was content to. 3 months after Jake's arrival at Zenith Academic Collective, everything had changed. The crowds outside his room were still there, but they were no longer hiding in fear. Students gathered to ask questions, to learn about Earth, and to work on projects with the human who had become famous across the galaxy. Jake was finishing his morning workout in the new gymnasium. The university had built a special facility designed to handle his exercise routine without structural damage. Students watched through reinforced windows as he completed what they now called Deathworlder training. Remarkable, said Dr. Zilquan to a group of visiting scientists. 6 months ago, we thought his physical capabilities were impossible. Now we're learning to see them as natural adaptations to his environment. A young Cylani student named Liranen raised her hand. Dr. Zilquan, is it true that humans can heal from injuries that would kill us? Yes, Dr. Zilquan said. But more importantly, they can prevent injuries that would kill us. Watch how Mr. Murphy moves around other students. Through the window, they could see Jake carefully navigating around a group of small students who were setting up equipment. He moved slowly, announced his presence, and made sure everyone was aware of where he was going. He's not just strong, Dr. Zilquan explained. He's trained himself to be gentle. That level of self-control is perhaps more impressive than his physical abilities. Jake finished his workout and joined the group. The students no longer fled when he approached. Instead, they gathered around him with questions and projects. Jake, said Klixara, can you help us understand this engineering problem? We're designing a habitat for a hostile world, and we need someone who understands survival in dangerous environments. Jake looked at their plans. You've got good ideas, but you need more redundancy. What happens if the main power system fails during a storm? We have backup power, said Zephyrin. What if the backup fails too? Jake asked. On Earth, we always assume that anything that can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible time. The students exchanged glances. This was what they had learned to love about working with Jake. He didn't just solve problems. He solved problems they didn't even know they had. That's what makes humans so valuable, said Grovan. They don't just survive in dangerous environments. They thrive in them. Word of Jake's success had spread far beyond the university. Representatives from the Galactic Federation Council had come to observe him. Military leaders wanted to understand human capabilities. Scientists wanted to study Deathworld evolution. But most importantly, other species were beginning to see humans not as monsters, but as potential allies. Dean Velthara called Jake to her office that afternoon. When he arrived, he found her meeting with a delegation of high-ranking officials from various species. Mr. Murphy, Dean Velthara said, these representatives have come to discuss humanity's future role in the Galactic Federation. Jake sat down carefully in his reinforced chair. I'm just a student. I don't represent all of humanity. But you are our only direct experience with your species, said a tall, graceful being with silver skin. I am Ambassador Threndiel of the Ethereal Collective. Your presence here has changed how we think about survival and cooperation. Changed how? Jake asked. Your project designs assume hostile conditions, said a crystalline representative. Most species design for optimal conditions. But your approach creates systems that work, even when everything goes wrong. That's just common sense, Jake said. You plan for the worst and hope for the best. Not to us, Ambassador Threndiel sighed. Most species have evolved in stable environments. We think in terms of harmony and balance. You think in terms of survival and adaptation. A small, floating representative spoke up. Your psychological profile shows something remarkable. Despite coming from a hostile world, humans are naturally cooperative. You form alliances with other species, even potential competitors. Why? Wouldn't we? Jake asked. Working together is better than working alone. Most species cooperate only with their own kind, the floating being explained. But humans seem to adopt anyone as part of their pack. You've formed friendships with students who were terrified of you just months ago. Dean Velthara activated a holographic display. We want to propose something unprecedented. A formal alliance between humanity and the Galactic Federation. Jake's eyes widened. An alliance? But there are only 10 humans in space right now. But there are billions more on Earth, Ambassador Threndiel said. And if they're anything like you, they could help us solve problems we've been struggling with for centuries. What kind of problems? Jake asked. The crystalline representative spoke up. Hostile world colonization, disaster response, emergency engineering, areas where most species simply cannot survive. You want humans to be the galaxy's emergency responders? Jake asked. Among other things, Dean Velthara said. But more than that, we want humans to be our partners. Your species brings perspectives we've never had. Jake thought about his friends back on Earth, his family, his classmates who had applied for the exchange program but weren't selected. What would this alliance mean? Full membership in the Galactic Federation, Ambassador Threndiel said. Access to our technology, our knowledge, our worlds. In exchange, humanity would provide expertise in survival, engineering, and crisis management. And friendship, added the floating representative. Your species has a unique ability to form bonds across species lines. The galaxy needs more of that. Jake felt overwhelmed. This is way bigger than anything I can decide. Of course, Dean Velthara said. This proposal will go through proper diplomatic channels. But we wanted you to know that your time here has made this possible. That evening, Jake sat in his room with Pipter and his growing circle of friends. The room had been expanded twice to accommodate all the students who now regularly visited. You're going to be famous, Pipter said, the human who opened the galaxy to his species. I don't want to be famous, Jake said. I just wanted to learn about alien technology and make friends. You did both, Klixara said. And you proved that monsters and heroes are often the same thing. I'm not a hero, Jake said. I'm just a guy who tried to be careful around his friends. That's what makes you a hero, Zephlin said. You had the power to hurt people, but you chose to protect them instead. Jake looked around at his friends. Species that had once run from him in terror now trusted him enough to fall asleep in his presence. Pipter was curled up on his shoulder. Clixara was leaning against his arm while she worked on her tablet. Zephyrin was floating peacefully nearby. "You know what I learned here?" Jake said. "Fear is just misunderstanding. And misunderstanding can be fixed with patience and time. And friendship," Pipter added sleepily. "Yeah, friendship too." The news of the proposed alliance spread across the galaxy. Some species were excited about the possibilities. Others were still nervous about humans. But the conversation had shifted. From "Are humans too dangerous?" to "How can we work together safely?" Jake's final project for his engineering degree was a comprehensive guide to human-alien cooperation. It included safety protocols, communication strategies, and design principles for mixed-species environments. The project became required reading. For diplomats and engineers across the galaxy. At his graduation ceremony, Jake stood before an audience of thousands. Representatives from hundreds of species had come to see the human who had changed their understanding of what was possible. 6 months ago, Jake said in his speech, "I came here thinking I was going to learn about alien technology. Instead, I learned something much more important. I learned that the universe is full of people who want to be friends, but sometimes don't know how to start." He looked out at the audience, seeing faces that had once been filled with fear now, showing curiosity and hope. "Being different isn't scary," Jake continued. "Being alone is scary, but none of us have to be alone. We can choose to see differences as strengths instead of threats. We can choose to build bridges instead of walls." The audience applauded, a sound that had once terrified other species, but now represented acceptance and hope. Jake's roommate, Pip Tor, presented him with a special gift at the ceremony. It was a small sculpture made from materials from every world represented at the university. "This is from all of us," Pipter said, "to remind you that you're not just a human or a Deathworlder. You're our friend." Jake carefully took the delicate sculpture, his massive hands handling it with the same gentleness he had learned to show to all his friends. After the ceremony, Jake prepared to return to Earth. He would be humanity's first ambassador to the Galactic Federation, helping to prepare both species for the alliance that was now being negotiated. "Will you come back?" Clixara asked as he packed his few belongings. "Of course," Jake said. "This is my second home now. And you're my second family. We'll miss you," Zephyrin said. "The university won't be the same without our friendly monster." Jake laughed. "I'm not a monster anymore, remember? I'm just Jake." "You were never a monster," Pipter said. "You were always just Jake. We just needed time to see it." As Jake's transport ship pulled away from the university, he watched the 3 spinning rings grow smaller in the distance. He was leaving behind friends who had become family, teachers who had become mentors, and a place that had become home. But he